Regular viewers will know that I have no fear of addressing controversial subjects on this show. But today, we're entering exceptionally dangerous territory. We're going to be wading into treacherous waters filled not with sharks or crocodiles, but by talk of immigration and flags. But before you lash a Union flag to your nearest lamppost, paint a cross of St George on a zebra crossing, or call upon the government to intercept a flotilla of small boats in the English Channel, let me be clear. The immigrants I'd like to talk about are the legal ones, the ones we need, the ones that come in through the front door during the day and not on small inflatable boats during the dead of night. And the flag I'd like to talk about is the big red one, the big red warning flag that should be flying over the UK demolition and construction sector right now, as our ailing government plans tighter migration controls that could have a massive and negative impact upon the industry's workforce. Back in May, the UK government published a white paper that sets out a series of major reforms to our work based migration system. Those reforms are aimed at reducing employers' dependence on overseas workers. Now, in the grand scheme of things, this might be a plan that many people are willing to get behind, British jobs, British people, and all that. But here in the demolition and construction industry, any such changes could exacerbate our already massive skill shortage. And indirectly, it could even worsen the mental health crisis that is already gripping the sector. So, what are these changes? Well, the first one has already crept in under the radar and is now in force. From the 22nd of July this year, there's been an increase in the skill level required to obtain a skilled worker visa. That standard has risen from A level or A level equivalent to undergraduate degree level. That new standard instantly disqualifies the very people that the demolition and construction industry so desperately needs to help plug the skills gap. I'll ask you, how many excavator operators have a university degree? How many bricklayers, plumbers, plasterers, or electricians? Now, there is what is known as a temporary shortage list, or a TSL, which contains details of roles that fall below the undergraduate degree level, but which can still be sponsored by employers. But that TSL is scheduled to last only until the end of 2026. So, unless it's extended, that door to entry could also be slammed shut. And the lack of long term job security for migrant workers doesn't end there. There's also a proposal to double the settlement period for skilled workers from the current 5 to a new 10-year period. Assuming workers can make it through this new legal minefield, they will have to wait a full decade before they can achieve permanent residency status. On top of this, the government intends to raise the cost of the immigration skills test by over 30%, which means that it will be more expensive for employers to push vital migrant workers through the testing system before they can start work. English language requirements are also being tightened, with skilled visa applicants expected to meet an A level equivalent. Yes, overall, fluency in English would undoubtedly be useful. We all know the importance of understanding things like safety briefings and toolbox talks, but this could exclude workers who might otherwise contribute meaningfully on site, where technical competence and team coordination often mean more than language fluency. And besides, I'll ask you again, how many British digger drivers do you know with an A level grasp of English? The nation's anti migration stance has already started to impact. Since 2020, the UK construction industry has seen a 40% decline in EU workers in construction. And this is at a time when more than a quarter of the industry is reporting severe labour shortages. And in London, the situation is even worse. Prior to Brexit, around 28% of London's construction workers was made up of EU nationals. That is now dropping dramatically. As an industry, we're already short 25,000 bricklayers, 10,000 carpenters, and 4,000 plasterers. Now, it would be nice to think that this is a massive opportunity for young British people to join the sector. Sadly, the dropout rate for apprentices is around 40% on some courses. Meanwhile, more than 20% of the industry workforce is over 50, and they're set to retire within the next decade. So we're actually losing existing workers way faster than we can train new ones. And now, with these plans to further tighten restrictions on legal migration, we could see that skills gap grow into a skills chasm. Bizarrely, these changes are being proposed by a government that is already seeing its house building plans dashed upon the rocks of the existing skill shortage. But there's another element to this issue, one that's not being discussed at all as far as I can see. We are aware of the impact that this will have on the country's ability to build sufficient homes, roads, infrastructure. We're increasingly aware of how this might create a greater shortfall in the wider industry workforce. But no one is talking about how this might impact those already working within the industry. Those workers are already under the cosh. They're already under stress. They're working against the clock, often alongside agency workers that may or may not show up on a daily or a weekly basis. Let's be clear here. If we have even less workers, clients aren't going to make an allowance. Main contractors aren't going to accept slower project completions. Subcontractors aren't going to explain that there are a few men and women like that and that the previously agreed project completion date was, with hindsight, a bit ambitious. They're each going to drive the existing workforce harder, earlier starts, later finishes, more time away from home, more pressure on an hourly, daily, and weekly basis. What will that do to safety levels on site? What will that do to the already fragile mental health of many in the sector? In our determination to satisfy the anti migration demands of part of the UK population, we could be making things a whole lot worse for the near 3 million people working within demolition and construction right now. That should raise a flag, a big red one,